Welcome everyone to Creator Economy NYC. We have an amazing crowd here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dashevsky, and I am the founder and organizer of Creator Economy NYC, which started out a little over a year ago. So we just celebrated our first birthday. Happy birthday, Creator Economy NYC. Which started out just a bar meetup at Hair of the Dog in Lower East Side. I know there's some originals here. If you were at that meetup, let me hear you holler. Alright, we got some people, I love that. And it has since blossomed into a really amazing, thriving community connecting content creators and professionals in the creator economy here in the Big Apple. So I'm so grateful for all of you who continue to show up, who read the newsletter that recently launched. We spotlighted some folks that are here now. I know we have Jack's here, Lenny's here, so we have a whole squad, and Jesse as well. So that newsletter goes out every Thursday, so a little plug there. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors and partners for tonight's event. First and foremost to Passionfroot, hailing all the way from Berlin. They are in town. It's amazing. We have Jen and Jens, which is an amazing co-founder duo name, which is great. So what Passionfroot is building is really cool. They are helping to streamline brand partnerships for both creators and brands. I just started using it. It's an excellent platform. So it's really great stuff, and happy to have you guys here kind of marketing the product. So shout out to Passionfroot. Big round of applause. Also a huge shout out to Notion, Danielle and team, Danielle, Emily, the whole squad. You guys have been amazing in helping to put everything together.
A major shout out to Emily in the back for helping us film the logistics of
Thank you so much. I don't think Notion needs much of an explanation, but they are building a ton of productivity tools, almost like your second brain. So if you're a creator, or you're a brand, or you're a manager, or your team is growing, Notion just has really awesome tools to store everything and keep you on track. So shout out to Notion. Also want to give a shout out to B&H in the back, and Bridget. They are filming today's panel so that we can disperse it and have some evergreen content. So shout out to B&H Video and Bridget for being here. Really appreciate it. B&H is awesome. They have a store on 34th Street and 9th Ave. It's the place to go for all of your tech gadgets, so definitely check them out. And they have a really cool conveyor belt, thank you, on the roof that ships all the products around. So great experience there as well. Shout out to Mitchell, who's here taking pictures. He's volunteering his time. There he is. Mitchell started a company called Big Whoop. Basically is first of its kind non-profit philanthropic photography company, which I'll share more about in a post-event email, but very thankful to have you here today. I really appreciate it. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out to our volunteers from the community who stepped up to help with operations and welcoming people and helping to set things up. Shout out to Elizabeth, Celeste, Brendan, Kayla, Janelle, Emily, and Isabella. Thank you guys so much. And Allie, my girlfriend in the back. Being supportive, I appreciate it. So we have an amazing panel ahead of us. We're going to chat for around 30 minutes or so and then open it up for Q&A. I want to make sure that you guys get time to ask your questions to this esteemed panel. And please do take out your phones and take pictures and videos and post it. This is the creator economy. That's why we're here. And now before we begin, just show of hands, how many people here consider themselves a content creator? All right. Working in brand or creator partnerships? Nice. Founders? All right. Chiefs fans? All right. Wow. Okay. I love that. Amazing. Well, I'm going to pass it off to Danielle to kick us off. And then just an introduction on yourself, and then Jack, and then Jen, and then we'll kick off the first question. But yeah, let's get into it.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle. I work at Notion, and I do influencer partnerships, both B2C and B2C, and I run podcasts as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Jack Appleby. I work in social strategy for 15 years now, which is really weird to say. Led social for brands like Beats by Dre, Verizon, Microsoft, TV show Community, and then eventually built enough of an audience for my writing about social and advertising strategy that I became a full-time content creator.
And I'm Jen, co-founder and CEO of Passionfroot, and we're helping creators to get brand partnerships and streamline their brand partnerships, and as well brands to actually discover and work with them together.
Amazing. Great. Well, welcome, guys. First question for each of you. In one word only, what does it mean to have a win-win creator and brand partnership in 2024? Kick us off.
This is not one word, but we like to say light bulb moment,
Okay.
which in our eyes means that audience member, someone sees a content creator's video about Notion and they have the aha light bulb moment and want to download it and use it for whatever their life's work is.
Amazing.
I'm also gonna cheat. One word's too hard. I would just say great content. Like, I think we've moved past this idea that brands are just sponsoring creators, and that if you do the partnership right, the brands are helping fuel amazing content for the creators, and vice versa.
I'm German, so I'm following rules. So I would say authenticity. I think it's super important. What we see at Passionfroot also is just, it has to be a good, authentic fit for our creators, but also brands that brings them hopefully the impact they're looking for, and actually it's establishing a long-term partnership.
That's great. I actually want to kind of piggyback on that for you, Danielle. With Notion kind of ramping up their influencer marketing, creator marketing, what are the key qualities or indicators that you look for when partnering with the creator, specifically in 2024?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, we don't discriminate against people who don't use Notion, because I think there definitely is a story there for people who are learning to use the product. But if someone is really passionate about Notion, uses it for a variety of use cases, that is definitely a key indicator of something that we look for. We are pretty lax in our influencer partnerships. We really want the creator to lead the story. Our briefs, so I've worked with some of you here, is pretty bare bones, again, just because we want the creator to really lead the story. So if someone uses Notion, that really is something that we look for, to tell the story authentically.
Nice. And Jack, for you, from a creator standpoint, what are the qualities or indicators that you look for in a brand when wanting to partner with them?
So I have to deal with Danielle.
There's a long background on that one.
Long background on that one.
Examples.
My whole pitch was that I'm useless organizationally. Created content, cannot organize my own inbox, to-do lists are a disaster for me. So that's where for me, it's do you fit with just kind of, this sounds really basic, but do you fit with the content I'm putting out there? And I'm very vulnerable in what I struggle with, what I think is successful marketing, just the mental health in the workplace. So if you're a cultural fit, that's what's most important to me.
Nice. That's really great. And now, Jen, for you and what Passionfroot is building, but also there's just so many different types of platforms out there helping to facilitate this process. How is Passionfruit helping to facilitate the identification of these creators and brands with the use of AI or whatever mechanisms on the other end to create these fruitful partnerships? No pun intended.
Nice. I think, sure we can layer, AI at some point over it, but I think right now, even just giving creators a turnkey solution or a system that helps them to kind of structure the chaos they're dealing with, and also on the brand side, basically just making it very easy, creating creators for them, having recommendations for them, which are the brands creators have worked with in the past, which means maybe it also fit for you. So certain criteria content fit, what's the audience are actually creating content for, geographic. So those are certain things we know we can really provide for brands, and just making their life then easier to find and work with those creators.
Interesting. Now, from what you've seen, how important is perhaps content alignment versus audience size when brands are partnering with creators?
Interestingly, I think it depends on the industry or category you're also in. So for a lot of creators that are actually using Passionfruit, many of them don't have huge audiences or millions of followers, but actually are experts in their niche or category. So that sometimes just matters even more than a large reach or following. But again, depends on the industry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, my audiences are around 50 to 60K per platform. And then my first year of going independent, like I doubled my best advertising salary. But I'm just properly niched down and have sponsors that can really access my audience. I make content for them. So like you really don't need huge audiences to make a significant income if you know how to properly niche down.
Right. How's Notion approaching that when it's audience size versus that niche or content alignment?
We definitely prioritize content alignment more than follower size. I'm sure all of you know that micro-influencers are growing in popularity by the second. So if someone has a really engaged community, something thought-provoking to talk about, again, passionate about Notion, they might be a fan of the brand, we definitely look at creators of all size, and I think that's a strategy that works best for us. We want to maximize reach and also engagement, so we work with a mix of micro, mid-tier, and macro influencers across all different channels to diversify.
Nice. Now, keeping on that, in terms of building out the length of a partnership, I know you actually have a couple of partners here in the room today, which is amazing. What do you see are the pros and cons of like a short-term versus long-term partnership? And is there a specific kind that you're aiming for, and if so, why?
Yeah, we usually, when we're working with a new creator, we like to do a test. So on average, if it's short-form content, Instagram Reels or TikTok, we'll do at least three videos to at least have multiple touch points with the audience. And then looking at the data, once that test goes, then we'll sign on for a longer-term partnership. But we typically run evergreen content throughout the year, so this can be general Notion how-tos, or you might, if you're a creator, have a personal trip coming up that you want to use Notion to promote how you plan the whole thing, and then we'll have campaign moments throughout the year. So typically, if we do a longer-term partnership, we might work with them on a 6-month basis, just so we have an idea on, because we'll have more idea on what exactly is coming.
Jack, any thoughts on that as well from a creator standpoint?
I begrudgingly pitch one-offs, and I think to Notion's credit, like your test projects are much longer than a lot of other brands' test projects. There's a lot of like one-off, and I don't think you guys do much one-off. Again, because I'm organizationally a disaster, I want long-term clients who I can work with throughout the year. And like for my personal business, like my goal this year is to have 3 6-digit clients who I can work with on a bunch of inventory, who have my phone number, who I can service constantly, and then turn down as many short-term deals so I can just focus on those so the results are there for everybody.
And at the end of the day, too, we want to have those relationships with our creators. I don't mind if you text me, maybe not on the weekends, but I want to be able to give you a heads up that something big is coming, or be there with along the step of the way when you are creating your content. So yeah, we definitely prefer that deep loyal connection.
Yeah. And Jen, on Passionfroot, I know there's the opportunity you can actually bundle your products. So for example, if you put out there maybe one newsletter ad, or maybe it's one LinkedIn post, you can bundle them to be 3, 4, 5. Is there like reasoning behind that, or have you seen any data in terms of brands choosing to select that over a one-off?
Yeah, I think we truly believe that creators are multi-platform or cross-platform. So oftentimes you start out maybe like on one platform and expand over time. It's all about like putting everything under one umbrella and being able also to actually then package or productize yourself actually even more, right? So maybe Jack, you started out I don't know on the newsletter, right? And then you're expanding your audience on Twitter, then on LinkedIn. So at the end of the day, it's what brands are interested in is in obviously like your content and your brand as future social, for example. So if they can even scale that further across different platforms, it makes tons of sense to package that, for example, in one deal or one collaboration. Yeah.
Right. So creator has been identified, brands locked in, and now it's kind of talking about the actual contents of the contract or something. Jack, I'm curious from your end if you have any real examples in terms of maybe when there's been some clashing from a negotiation standpoint and how perhaps that's been overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on both sides of this. Like my last job before becoming a creator was I worked on the creative strategy team at Twitch. So I would pitch the ideas for brands, answer RFPs, and then help with influencer selection. You'd be amazed how many different ways there are that these things can go south. It's usually pretty understandable from both sides. Like there's a lot of questions about name, image, and likeness. There's a lot of questions about how long someone can use NIL. It can go any direction. I think what's most important for both sides is just be very upfront about your expectations, because every form of these deals can exist, and usually you can meet somewhere in the middle if everyone just plays nice.
Right. What about you? Any thoughts from the brand end?
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of things that we're dealing with on our end too when we're doing these contract negotiations. Of course, when we're working with creators, I'd love to make it as easy as possible, but a great example here is I used to work at a IPG agency, at a PR agency. That's how I started my career in influencer marketing, and by standard, the corporation required influencers to have insurance of up to $1 million. That was just standard in the contract. And every single time we would send that out, we'd get red lines. You're not doing this, we cannot do this. Like, I'm an independent contractor. It's been a few years since I've worked there, so I think that they solved that issue since that was the beginning of influencer, when influencer was still pretty new. So again, there are just things that maybe creators don't always realize are going on in the background with brands, policies and legal teams and things like that. But we do try to meet in the middle, explain internally as much as we can. You know, sometimes we're working with people who are independent contractors, or they just don't have these large managing agencies to back them up.
Right. And Jen, any thoughts on that as well? I know on Passionfroot you can kind of like pitch your name your price or something. I'm curious, any learnings there and how creators or brands can navigate negotiations better when there's kind of clashing?
Yeah, I would say 99% of collaborations are going smoothly, thank God. But other than that, I mean, challenges are, you know, like on the pricing negotiations. So there we see sometimes like people clashing already in the beginning, setting expectations of brands obviously want to see return, you know, like can you, they're asking, can you, you know, really kind of confirm to me the number of clicks or sales we're gonna get here, right? Which is also understandably hard for the creator side. So I think it's all about transparency and communication, just even reporting back on the, you know, like insights or outcome, and then just transparently being upfront about it and trying to figure out, hey, maybe it was like the tone of voice, maybe we need another like creative asset here to do it in a different way. So I think just communication oftentimes is already where we see some creative brand partnerships are failing at. So that's where issues can arise, yeah.
I'll tell you the one thing that fails on both directions is timeline. Brands are very confused when they hear how long it takes to make content, and content creators are very surprised when they hear how long it takes for brands to move.
What's an example?
I shouldn't call out anybody specific. Let's see. I mean, functionally, like the most common piece of content I sell is a 1,000-word essay. I can't whip that out in a week if it's a piece of branded content for a platform I've never used before to write about a niche or a specific area of another study. I need some time to do some homework on that. And the number of times I've gone like, hey, we're launching next week, like, can you go? No, I cannot go. I need to like work on this a little bit.
So how do you go about kind of setting those expectations? Like, this is a two-week thing that I need to execute to reach these standards that you want. I'm not afraid to walk away from something that I can't meet the timeline on. And that's a learned behavior, because I definitely agreed to lots of things that I could not meet the timeline on to start. Right.
So, I mean, listen, I did everything wrong in my first year as a creator. I took too many deals, I didn't understand the financials of it, didn't understand that I would get burned out at least 7 times in 9 days. So there's a lot of learnings to get this stuff done, but like, you just kind of go and figure it out at some point.
Right. So that's kind of the scenario where there's like the brand and creators' creative freedom kind of clashes. So I'm curious with you, when you're working with creators across a wide range of mediums, how do you approach with, this is kind of what Notion envisions, if you do at all, and then how do you kind of work with the creator in terms of how they want to execute on it specifically?
So we mitigate that by not setting an expectation. And honestly, if you are an influencer marketer, I feel like half the battle of this job is teaching people internally at your companies how influencer marketing works. I am extremely understanding of all of the things that you have to do as a creator, all of our creators have to do. Again, I'm not the one sitting behind the camera and editing the video, so it's not my job to tell you how long it takes. So we make a conscious effort, to communicate internally. And I would say this really only comes up when we have a product launch, where, some of our teams are waiting on content to go live, but for the most part, we don't even put timelines in our contracts, again, just because we're super flexible. We want the creator to create the best content possible, so we're also very fortunate though. Notion can be used in a million ways, and there's no wrong way to use it, so the platform in and of itself is pretty flexible. I used to work at a hair color company, and that was not flexible. I mean, if you applied one step wrong, I mean, we also had times where creators were not even applying the product, like it was clearly they were just like touching their hair area. So, you know, in times like those, I mean, then you have to step in and say, okay, this is not contractually correct. And then just being really upfront, communicating those requirements. You know, sometimes if the influencer is interested, I'll take a phone call, of course, to brief them on the content, do walkthroughs. Again, when I worked at this hair color company, for creators, we would have someone on the education team actually meet with them, so they had, you know, we could do everything we can up front.
Right, that's great. Any thoughts, Jen, on that aspect, creative freedom, with that as well?
I think what we see as a platform is, again, like at the end of the day, we're working with creative people and it's their superpower, so obviously also leveraging that while making sure, you know, the main points you want to bring across come across, but other than that, it's oftentimes more effective if it really comes from their angle and their personal story, so that's basically what we've seen so far working well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the best way to brief a creator is 3 bullet points with mandatories and as little specific phrasing as humanly possible. That's not going to be true for every brand. Like, there's a lot of products out there that need, they either have ownable phrases or some slogan they're promoting. I mean, my biggest pain point with that stuff is, like, I worked in social strategy for a long time, so I receive a lot of briefs that I don't think are strategically sound.
Right.
And I have to make the decision whether I bite my tongue on that or if I kind of try to massage those as well. But it's a song and dance. Like, there's a lot of deals that I'll take because even if the brief is more restrictive than I want it to be, it's a product I either use or really believe in, or vice versa.
Right. You clearly have a lot of experience on both sides. What advice would you give to creators who may be in the room or, you know, brand partners just starting out on kind of like kicking things off from a partnership standpoint?
If you're a creator and you believe that your income's going to come from brand partnerships, learn to package yourself up and learn how to sell what you are. Like, have a strong media kit, be able to give an elevator pitch as far as what your content is, what your differentiators are. And you can really surprise brands if you apply analytics and results. Like, if you actually send someone a report, brands don't get that from creators. Like, when I worked at agencies, when I worked at Twitch, we did generate all that ourselves. One of my differentiators that's been able to give me additional business, like second time, third time around, is that I show them those analytics reports. So, like, I did a deal with SurveyMonkey last year. I did a TikTok for them, and it did 20 million views. I give them an analytics report for that. When they sent the next brief to me, my TikTok was in the brief as far as what content to make, along with my analytics report.
Do it again.
So just do it again.
Interesting. With that, I'm curious, how do you and Notion judge the success or failure of a partnership? Is it strictly analytics? Like, what it constitutes?
Yeah, take notes, John. A lot of things go into it, of course. You know, web traffic, link clicks, conversion, in Notion signups is something that we look at, but we're also fortunate. Influencer now sits on the consumer brand team under creative, so we have a bit more brand awareness metrics. So again, reach, engagement, and then honestly, we also look pretty heavily into sentiment. So what are people saying in the comments? How are they reacting to this? There's a lot of excitement. You know, people are asking for more. Honestly, when I get pitched for a second partnership or a second round of content from an influencer, and they have screenshots of comments, because let's be honest, I don't have time to go through every single comment on a video, that say like, I want to hear more about this, I want to see your Notion template, and they give me an idea saying, oh, this is the feedback I got from my audience, how can we turn this into a second round of content? That's like the best for me.
Interesting. So a mix of qualitative and quantitative.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'll toot Notion's horn. Like, I feel like they have very realistic expectations of brand awareness and what happens with influencer content. Like, I will get some of my sponsors are like, cool, you're going to drive signups for our $10,000 analytics platform. Like, no, I'm going to drive leads.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you some email addresses. But, like, not nearly enough brands are understanding and realistic enough about how many touch points it actually requires for a customer to convert from influencer marketing.
And we talk so much internally about how influencer adds to the FOMO effect. So, you know, you see a piece of influencer content, you think, oh my gosh, what is that? But you might need to see an organic piece of content, another influencer's piece of content. So again, we're just generating that FOMO effect to hopefully drive a new user later on, and also hopefully a more meaningful user.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting. That's all really amazing stuff in terms of the execution, kind of negotiation phase. Learned a lot there in the outcome and reporting. I'm curious from just an industry standpoint, you know, influencer marketing is growing very rapidly. It's supposed to be hitting $35 billion in spend or more this year alone, which is just massive for the industry. Talk a little about micro-influencers. I'm curious how you see the role of micro-influencers evolving in this landscape and kind of more of these like niche down influencers in terms of just your strategy and then strategies across the board in the creator economy.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have seen the rise of UGC marketing. Anyone can be a content creator these days, especially with TikTok. So we use a platform called Kale. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It's a UGC platform. We love them. You basically just post challenges, and then creators get paid out by views. It's a pretty low investment, and you get pretty high reach. And for us, we use it to flood secondary hashtags. So this isn't so much, you know, we're generating content for ads. We could be, but we use it primarily to kind of trick the algorithm. So we'll post challenges, of course, about our product launches, but say summertime rolls around and we want to post a bunch of content around summer travel using Notion to plan your trips. We'll post a challenge with travel hashtags, so Notion starts popping up in those verticals. Same for studying or family planning or, you know, whatever it could be. So that has been an extremely powerful tool for us, and I definitely think that UGC marketing is on the rise. But another note on micro-influencers, which I talked about earlier, we do a lot of student marketing. Students love Notion, and so we talked with a few students recently, and actually a resounding number of them on college campuses, love micro-influencers. They're getting much more niche recommendations. It's much more relatable. It feels like someone that can actually be like your friend recommending a product to you instead of the oversaturated, larger creator. So we are really thinking through our micro-influencer strategy this year to specifically reach college students on campuses.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. UGC and micro-influencers are getting blended now a little bit, which is, it's never been that way before, but I think there's new tech platforms that are very good at accessing both. So like every brand has a finite amount of budget. Are they looking for thought leaders? Are they looking for like flashy TikToks that have products? Like there's more ways to access content from other people than there's ever been. So I mean, I'll say like when I work with like micro creators or micro-influencers when I'm either like consulting with the brands I've worked for in the past, depth of content is something I look for a lot now. Like there's a lot of creators out there who do like trend-based TikTok content, but a lot of what I look for is who's telling actual stories, who's telling evergreen. Like I almost call it like narrative-based short-form stuff because it just feels like it has legs for longer if they're making that type of content, which to me is what differentiates a lot of the micro creators from the UGC, like the amateur creators who are happening upon something.
Jen, any thoughts there on micro-influencers?
Yeah, I think what we see, a lot of micro-influencers, there's a rise in the B2B category, so a lot of like B2B creator, that don't have, you know, like huge followings or millions of subscribers. Super interesting on LinkedIn. It's growing as a creator platform also right now pretty fast. Twitter obviously as well. So micro-influence in a way that those are actually experts with just smaller audience sizes, but actually very knowledgeable and high engagement. So that's rather where we see micro-influencers as a rise. Yeah.
You touched on B2B, which is a great segue. B2B content is obviously growing in popularity. LinkedIn has become a very popular platform, despite its cringe that you may see there. But I'm curious, what kind of trends are we seeing with B2B, and how perhaps does it differ from B2C type of content? Jack,
I mean, I think we're going to see a huge rise in the practitioner to content creator. Like, I never dreamed of getting paid to make content. That was not the goal. When I started tweeting about advertising, I was like, maybe I'll meet my next boss here, like maybe a client or two, but I mostly just talk about this because I need to have more friends in this industry. No aspirations being paid for that. I think it's gonna become much, much more common, and I think it's gonna happen much, much more by happenstance. Like, if you're not on LinkedIn talking about whatever your niche is, like, you are missing out. It is the widest gap of number of creators to number of people scrolling the platform of any social network. That algorithm is, I don't like talking about algorithms, but it's a very beatable algorithm by just being honest about who you are and where you're at in business. Like, if you're vulnerable on LinkedIn, you'd be shocked how fast you can grow an engaged audience. I mean, my first six-figure brand deal was an organic LinkedIn comment to me just asking for someone to sponsor my newsletter. Because LinkedIn's just that platform, people are there.
Right.
Yeah, I was talking the other week about how LinkedIn it's a lot less, there's a lot less of a barrier for people to actually comment. Like, people are more willing to like and comment and participate in discussion than maybe Instagram or TikTok. And also, again, like you mentioned, the algorithm is very beatable because say someone you're connected with, someone that they're connected with comments on something, you'll probably see it. So I do think that content travels pretty quickly, and we have been investing more in LinkedIn over the last year as a B2B vertical. Definitely more, it feels more like a word of mouth channel for us. You know, it sparks a lot of conversation, gets people interested in Notion versus a conversion driver, but our demand gen team is also thinking about LinkedIn, and we're running influencer ads on there, which is crazy because that was totally not a thing 6 months ago.
Right. I mean, and I would challenge any minute you're spending on Twitter is probably better spent on LinkedIn now. Like, that's how powerful that platform's become. I also just hate Twitter now.
I'll never go on my Twitter. People have to pry it from my cold dead hands. But yeah, you're right.
Look, Twitter and Instagram, they have their pros and cons, or X now. One thing I've noticed on LinkedIn is, and I tell people, it feels cleaner that there is more of a vetted, I guess, community on there. You're not really inundated with bots that you get elsewhere, and people are themselves, so we think, as opposed to kind of hiding behind some anon account, which is very prevalent on TikTok and Instagram, and especially on Twitter. So it's cool to see that companies are leaning more into LinkedIn in the B2B marketing space.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the cringe. The cringe is the opportunity. Like, the content on LinkedIn is that's not great. So if you go, like, be yourself on LinkedIn, you will stand out extremely quickly. Like, I just started a company with a friend where it's to help, it's not really for creators, it's more for, like, mid-level professionals who just kind of want to put themselves out there a little bit. It's called Break an Egg. It's $5 a month. And it's just basic prompts to help you write about your career. Most of the people who, like, we have 1,000 users now, most of the people who use that service from us, they saw 4 and 5 digit % increases in their engagement just because no one's talking on LinkedIn. Just by, like, saying, like, hi, let me tell you a little about myself. That post blows up every time, and you can repeat that once a month, really.
Right.
Just, like, go, please, I'm asking you, go post on LinkedIn.
So one takeaway from this is to be going on LinkedIn and targeting that area. All right, we're going to move into Q&A after this one last final question. So if you have questions, save them real quick. But for you guys, if you could create a dream partnership between any brand and creator, real or fictional, who would they be and why?
That's a great question. At Notion, we really admire what the browser company is doing. They are building Arc, if any of you are familiar. It's basically a competitor to Google Chrome, Safari, and they're just building really cool products over there. So we love their storytelling aspect. Actually, their marketing team is called the storytelling team. It's not even called marketing. So yeah, I think what they're doing is pretty cool. So we're already, integrated with Arc, but I think we could do something pretty awesome there.
I love that you said fictional. I've never thought of this
Give me
before.
some fiction, give me something sports related.
Almost Famous is my favorite movie. I wanted to be William Miller in the worst way when I grew up. Well, I guess he's 15 in that movie, so you understand what I'm saying. I want the William Miller newsletter about old rock and roll.
Okay.
Weird answer, I'm sticking with it.
All right.
I think my dream partnership would be probably with Trevor Noah. He started out now as a creator as well. Actually, he left the Daily Show and started his podcast, right, where he interviews Bill Gates and a couple of other famous people. So he sees himself really. I think he even called himself in the information interview, "I'm a creator." And I think it would be great fit with Passionfroot.
All right, let's get him on the platform. All right, well, thank you guys for answering my initial questions. We do want to open up for Q&A. I think I'm going to steal one of the mics, and then we can just pass around another one. Does anyone have questions? We'll kind of run around. Let's start on this end. Ilya, here you go. I feel like Oprah when I do this.
Hey folks, I used to work at YouTube and now I work at NBC Universal, and it's an interesting kind of dichotomy where a lot of creators, they're either just beginning to build out their teams, or some are completely independent. Versus at NBCU, you'll have talent, but then you'll have a whole production crew, and then you'll have the folks that are kind of managing the relationships with the advertisers. You have all these layers. So my question is just, are there any layers that you would love to see, or you think would be really useful for creators to have? Or do you think that the more independent, the better? Or where do you see them struggling?
Help me. I'm dying slowly. No, I mean, so I run my business fully by myself. I had an employee last year, it did not work out. And I've been very hesitant to hire help or use services since then. And that's the primary reason that I've burned out so hard so many times. So like, the things that I need help with as a creator are organizational help, like, I would say financial help. Like I never freelanced. I ran strategy teams and had these wonderful producers that I worked with, and then there was no one to do it for me when I started running my own business. So like I think the big piece is just things to help run the business of being a creator. I'm working on it.
Passionfroot.
I got it.
Maybe also quickly what we see right now, a lot of creators start out independently and start to make their first, money, and the first role we always see them actually hiring are partnership managers. So the ones that are then actually, doing the brand partnerships, closing the sales, taking care of the money, and that is most often really always the first very much hire they're doing, which is super interesting to see, and that's also how they build out then their team over time and those layers, so they can focus on actually writing or creating. Yeah.
And then just a follow-up, do you think it's useful to have both a platform like Passionfroot and then also a partnership manager as well, so to coordinate that relationship?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're using it as a team, right? So actually having one place to kind of having an overview and the transparency over your business helps not only you as a creator, but also actually you as a team member. Yeah.
More inbound's never a bad thing.
Okay. All right. More questions?
Great panel, learned a lot. I was hoping to zoom in on the negotiation aspect, particularly around pricing. And I was hoping to ask really anyone, are there things that someone like a talent manager or a creator can do that would completely fuck up a deal? Or are there things that they might do that really set them apart in those conversations around pricing specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't really cracked the code yet on exactly. Hello? Okay. On exactly what is standard. We do have a CPM model. We have a CPM model that we use. But again, it really changes. It differs based on platform, country. We do partnerships internationally, so the range is crazy. Germany, really expensive. But yeah, I would say, honestly, unrealistic numbers. Like if you're asking me for $50K for a TikTok, I'm gonna say no.
So I have a question for you, because my answer was gonna be like, when I've worked with creators in the past, it's pretty hard to get it so I'm just like, oh, never mind, you're a bad fit. Like even with pricing, I would probably come back with like, here's a realistic. Do you actually, if it's crazy, do you probably cut it off there because you're worried about it, or do you give them another shot?
I'll usually, I feel like I sometimes have a gut to face this way, have a gut feeling on whether or not they're going to work with me, and if they have like a pretty large talent agency, I know that a lot more goes into it, so I just know historically, and I've been in this business for 6-7 years, that probably it's not going to fit in our budget, but I'll always be upfront and say, hey, this is what we can do realistically, this is what we're giving creators of a similar size. I don't know.
You're gonna say backwards in a second.
Creators of a similar size, so yeah, we'll always come back, but I understand sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's also tough, like, as I've worked with creators, like helping them with pricing, just kind of like friendly help, most aren't charging enough. Especially if you're doing, to your point of like a TikTok, is like, short form is tough. If you're doing things with any depth, almost no one I know is charging enough. I'm not saying double your prices, but ask for more. As long as it's not insane, they're not gonna like suddenly like, no, no thank you, see you later. They're gonna probably come back to you with whatever their budget is. Negotiating is not fun. It's like my least favorite part of this process.
Yeah, it's funny, I think newsletter and LinkedIn creators are not charging enough, for sure.
This is good to know.
Yeah.
Upcharge. All right, more questions? Yes, back here. We'll come back front, Lenny.
Hi guys, great panel. I mean, Jackie talked about this specifically, but I'm curious for anyone. So as a professional who's trying to get on LinkedIn more, what do you think is like what are like the baby steps that you can take to start becoming a creator? If you are not ready to dedicate, full time or like many hours per week, what's like the minimum amount that you can commit that can actually start to build your audience?
So I wrote an article, I need to mention up front. My newsletter is called Future Social. It goes out once a week. It's totally free. But to me, the easiest way to start on LinkedIn, especially if you're trying to approach it from like more of a professional lens, is just 3 times a week post something you admire, like whether it's another person on LinkedIn or someone else's content. Post some sort of article that's related to your niche and your original thoughts on top of that. What do you think of this? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And then just something from work that you're proud of. Like that right there gets you 3 days a week of content. And like maybe the most important part of that is it's impossible to be controversial in that model. Like one of the reasons I love LinkedIn is because I have dealt with every version of nonsense on Twitter. And I've dealt with almost none of it on LinkedIn. So like you can have the most positive personal branding experience on LinkedIn and probably any platform.
Quick follow-up to that. Do you feel like it's just about posting the content, or is it also about spending time and engaging with other people? Like, what's the balance between those things?
I think a mistake that I've made as a creator is I don't engage a ton. And that's somewhat by design. I'm a digital introvert. I get overwhelmed by like replies and comments very easily, and then I'm like, nope, gotta put this away and go outside and do something else. I think on LinkedIn, that's probably the platform where it's most valuable to comment on other people. I will always believe that making great content is the #1 thing that matters, and anything else is a distant second.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm at Ending with Allie on everywhere, including Minecraft if you want to follow me. But I actually have a question for you all. Besides Passionfroot, where Jen, I've actually spoken praises to you about your tool in email, and Notion as a great tool. What are some other tools that you personally use to either reach out to content creators, talk with content creators, or as a content creator, love to use?
LinkedIn is a good start. I get a lot of cold LinkedIn DMs, but to be honest, my inbox is pretty flooded. We use Creator IQ, but I think the discovery tool is kind of so we don't use it that much. Honestly, we're very fortunate here in Notion. We get a lot of inbound, so most of the work I do is inbound. I also have a pretty good relationship with a lot of talent managers, different agencies, so I'll just source that way. But if you send me a cold email, I will read it. I might not always respond depending on my bandwidth, but I will read it. And I prefer that one-on-one connection with an influencer.
Yeah, I would also say if you're a creator and want to reach out to brands, obviously one is Passionfroot, but the other platform is LinkedIn, because that's where you really can look for, creator partnership managers or head of growth. Really look for startups that maybe even got recently funded or money actually, so that you can actually really target your pitch also to their product and your audience. So that is actually the platform most of the creators can do very, very targeted outreach. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my personal tool set is very, very simple. It's like very nuts and bolts. Like my newsletter's on Beehive. I'm not really using any services that would surprise people. Like I use FreshBooks for invoicing, but like I don't have many tools. Like maybe like an alternate answer to that is there's a couple of tricks that I've learned from other creators that have kind of helped with either putting myself out there. Like, it wasn't until 2 months ago that I had my email address in my bio across my social platforms. Like, I had another creator buddy, I was like, how did you land this deal with Amazon? I was like, oh, they just like sent me an email. I was like, how did they get your email? It's like, it's in my bio. I was like, I still have things to learn about this. Got it. So just things like that. And then I would say, if you're a creator, don't be afraid to publicly put out there, like, I am looking for sponsors. Like, here's some things I'm excited about. Whether you maybe publicly reveal some of like the future content you're trying to make, or the niches you're part of, or just like random ideas and like who you might be interested in, like, you can pull in business that way.
Yeah, that's a good point on the email in bio, because if I'm just scrolling my own feed and I see engaging TikTok content about Notion, I will go to that person's profile, screenshot it for later, write down their email for later, and reach out. I would say that's probably how I get most of my outbound partnerships.
What's up, everybody? Great panel. My name is Sam. You have already alluded to some of what I'm about to ask, but I'll start with you, Danielle. You probably, as you mentioned, get inundated with people reaching out, so I'm curious, what are some of the keys of the pitches that really stand out? And then as we build upon that for the rest of the panel, any other unconventional tactics or overlooked fundamentals when it really comes to breaking through and trying to build deal flow and brand partnerships?
Yeah, be upfront with all the information and keep it as concise and succinct as possible. Like, tell me your handle, make sure all of your links are adequately, accurately linked within the email. I want to see, your follower count, how many average views you get a month, and then also come to me with an idea. I feel like those are always the ones that stand out to me versus just, hey, I'm so-and-so and I make this content, would love to work with Notion, I love the product. Like, actually come to me with, hey, I had this video idea, would love to make this happen, and then also be patient, follow up, and be patient. But yeah, if you come to me succinct, short, all the information up front, that's always the best.
So pitch an idea.
Yeah, pitch an idea. I want to hear your ideas.
I mean, I'll just layer on that, like, pitch an idea and package it nicely. And this is, again, because my whole career was I answered RFPs for most of my career. So I will put together, like, I shouldn't say that. Half the time I will put together like a small deck even, if I think it's one of those brands where they would appreciate that kind of thing. At the very least, like, my email structures are very, very clean. They're like small bulleted, full sentences that are like short sentences. Like, just appear as professional as possible. I love that you caveat with like overlooked fundamentals. Unconventional stuff is like not, I wouldn't pursue weird ways to pull this stuff off. Get really, really good at the basics.
What we have seen doing really well is one way is to actually ask your audience. So some of the creators doing surveys and ask them, what are tools you're interested in learning more about? What are your top tools that you are using? Once you have those survey results, you can actually then reach out to brands and say, hey, look, my audience is really interested in, text software, or they're interested, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're like founding businesses. So the more targeted you really make it to their product and what it can bring them, the better. And then also what Jack said, just like fundamentals, like, hey, these are my follower numbers or subscribers, here's what I can do for you. And also social proof, here are the brands or companies I've worked already with in the past. That always gives actually trust and creates just, like professionalism of, okay, those are like brands that are very similar to us, so could be a great fit also to work with this creator.
The other thing I would add is, even if you have a partnerships manager or some sort of service that brings in your business, you are still in charge of your new business. And there are certain brands and people that will be more excited to talk to you than your manager. Like, it's always very careful about who does what and where, like, but don't be afraid to insert yourselves, like, especially, like, I've done a lot of business just in Twitter, like, not even Twitter DMs, but Twitter replies. I'm willing to be there and then, like, taking the meetings myself. This is the reason I don't have a new business person. I found I negotiate, like, it's easier for me to negotiate if you're seeing me and I can talk you through the creative idea live on a 30-minute call.
I 100% agree with that. No, managers are part of the game and they're necessary, but I love to at least have one touch point or some sort of form of communication with the actual creator. One, so I can help build that relationship long term, I love to have one-on-one relationships with our creators. It leads to loyalty, and we can always build something better when that happens. So I do, again, prefer. Sometimes I have creators that just pitch me themselves and then they'll pass me on to the manager. Totally fine with that. I just like to have that kind of personal touch.
And if you are pursuing a manager, sorry, I just had to talk this about my buddy who's a creator. If you are pursuing a manager, establish that relationship or establish that workflow up front. So like on the side, I'm now a basketball content creator as well on Instagram and TikTok, and I have a teammate who has about 1 million followers. The way he does his email and bio is he has an email that's dedicated to his business, where people who see him will reach out to him, and then he will forward that to his managers, so he is always part of the conversations, just so he can always keep an eye on his own business.
I actually had a creator's manager send me a video, like a Loom video that the creator made addressing me, walking me through his idea in the upfront conversation. That actually made a pretty good impact as well. He wanted to still have his manager create the, do all the negotiations, create the, the conversation, but he took the time out of his day to create a 1-minute video walking me through his idea and who he was, and that made an impact. Clearly, still remember it.
Amazing. Quick takeaway, I'm the back now. But I'm a magician. Do things that don't scale, I think, is a really great point that, crossover from entrepreneurship also to the creator world. We have time for 2 more questions. I'll give you.
Thank you. Great panel. My name is Tiff Knighton, host of Main Character Energy with Tiff Knighton. And I appreciate the feedback about basically how you want to integrate having the manager but seeing the creator. What do you feel about doing kind of like a 3-point touch way, or if there was like, setting up a call, or creator set up a call and had their manager? How do you feel about that? And then my second question is, what do you throw out in a partnership opportunity, like from a brand side and a creator side? Like what's something you see from a creator that would be kind of an instant pass? And same thing from a creator side, like what do you see from a brand that could be an instant pass, not a good fit?
I'm always open to a 3-way call. If an influencer is taking time to actually ask me for a phone call, I'll usually always take it, and I really appreciate that extra touch. So yes, totally fine to have a manager in the conversation. Again, I totally understand that creators can't run everything themselves, and they have help for a reason, so totally fine. I would say something that's an immediate pass, if you're rude, I guess. For the most part, people aren't that rude, but I've had some instances, where we've done a contract negotiation or a negotiation on pricing, and I've gotten some choice words back, so I would say that would be an immediate pass. But that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, I mean, for me, immediate passes are like spiciness in the pitch. Like, I'm not looking to do like highly controversial things, or like when I'm consulting for brands. I think wholesome content, educational content, inspirational content is very underrated, and if I can pick between someone who's like real spicy with their content or someone who's like gonna help people, I'm always picking the one who's helping people.
What we see oftentimes is just like it has to fit to the content, right? So if there's really no angle at all, that's usually like where creators or brands also pass very, very fast, because it's really difficult then to make that basically pitch. So that's where most of the creators are then passing on brands as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you all for your super thoughtful questions, and a huge round of applause for our panel, Jen, Jack, and Danielle. Wow, this was very exciting. We have time afterwards to stick around. There's more food, there's more drink. We'll restock it a little bit. And Notion has some freebies in the back. Part of their new calendar product that they recently launched, so that's huge. And then there's stickers, of course, for Notion, Passionfroot, and some New York City stickers to take. But thank you, everybody. This was amazing. Really appreciate it.